Hey y'all, it's Lucy. Um, I can't see your comments. Well, there's probably a way I could, but I haven't figured it out yet. Last time I had my iPad beside me, but I don't have it today because I have all these other supplies surrounded me. So what my brother does is he types up on his iPad and he says, "Oh, so and so says," and so it really helps me. So Ben is in the background, my trusty helper, and I'm just going to kind of introduce myself if you're new to this. So each week for about 7 weeks, I've been doing lives to what I call the Make a Castle Challenge, and I finally finished mine. One of my friends, Jackie's, I think made two or three in the time that I've just gotten one. But anyway, this is my castle. I'm so excited about it. And I decided to use a crushed stone. I'll show you a little better when I change cameras. I'll show you the stone filling, but I'm really happy. The stairs, I like the way the stairs came out. I love the shingles on the roof, and I'm really happy about it. And I'll do not a live, but I'll do a video of how to put it all together because truthfully, some of the pieces are confusing. So this is the Make a Castle Challenge, and tonight we're talking about what goes on top of the tower, steeples and stuff. And another thing I'm going to show you is how to make, wait, let me show you with this one, how to make a little bell that actually moves around in a tower. I don't know if you can see it very well, but my friend Rhonda taught me how to do that. I used to tie them on a string, and they wouldn't dingle very well. They were like kind of hanging there funny. So she showed me to put it on a chain and then anchor the chain to a piece and then put that at the top of your tower. So we'll go into a little more detail about that. And really tonight I wanted to show you, especially if you make patterns by hand, show you how to draw a steeple pattern that is so easy. And let me see, Ben says, Helen is here from Levittown. I don't know where that is. Janet from Spokane. Margot from Glendale, Jackie from California, and Birdie is here. So I appreciate all of y'all being here, and I hope you get some value out of this session. And let me see what else. I think those are the main things. So, and I introduced myself. Let me see if there's anything else I should tell you about. And I'm going to show you two different steeples, or they're called spires or tower toppers, whatever you want to call them. I'm going to show you one that fits on either whatever your tower is, like a hexagonal tower, or perhaps a four-sided tower or a six-sided tower. Okay, Ben just told me Levittown. I think Helen is from Levittown.
Maybe.
It's the town Billy Joel made famous, so that's very cool. Okay, I am going to move my iPad. I'm going to knock things over first. Let me pick those up so you're going to see my head disappear. Retrieve them. And I'm going to move my computer out of the way. And I'm going to switch to my top-down camera. And I'm going to move it down so it's not such a crazy view. So you can see my work surface. Let's move this out of the way. Trying to make sure I don't toss my my computer off the table. That would make me very sad. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to show you is how to draw a steeple pattern. And I'm just going to use regular piece of paper. And I'm going to use this compass. And this is a fancy compass. I got it because a lot of the cheap compasses don't hold the diameter very well. And so when you're drawing a steeple, you have to decide how. Okay, more people. Dee from New Orleans, Jitana, I hope I said your name right, from Brooklyn, and Susan from Florida. Okay, So when you're drawing a steeple, you have to decide how tall you want it. And for this one, I accidentally changed my pattern. Instead of doing, I think there were 2.5 inches, I did 3-inch tower. I still like the effect, but in the pattern, the Make a Castle pattern on my blog, it's a 2.5-inch tower, so it is shorter. It is more like this. So it's a little bit shorter, a little less dramatic. So this is for a 2-inch tower. And actually, it's not exactly 2 inches because that's this line, which is, if it was a triangle, it would be the hypotenuse. And I didn't want to get into the math. So it's basically, it's just under 3 inches because it's angled. Let's see how, let's measure it. It is 3 inches tall. And it's 3.25 if you measure it along the hypotenuse, but standing straight up, it is 3 inches tall. Okay, but I'm going to make, I'm losing my stone granules, which are on the base. Okay, I'm going to make a 2-inch steeple. So I set my compass at 2 inches. Let's measure it. Measure it so you can see it on the screen easily. It is actually just under 2 inches. This one has a nice way. I had to special order this, but it's really nice. If you, okay, right at 2 inches. So let's anchor it in the paper. You want it anchored so that your center point doesn't move, and then just kind of roll it around. And if your center point hasn't moved, and your pencil point hasn't moved, you'll get a complete circle. And you really don't need a whole circle, but it's easier to see. Okay, so the next thing is you have to decide how wide you want your steeple. So I did several steeples, and you can see on this one that the width of this triangle is just slightly larger than the width of each side of this hexagon. So I just usually add like a tenth or a tenth of an inch, just a tiny amount. I found this one was more attractive than, I think this is the one that was, there was one that had, I made it way too big and it just looked funny. It looked like a mushroom sitting on top. I like them a little bit tighter. See how the side is just a little bit bigger? I think that looks better. But if you want a deeper overhang, then you make this space wider. Okay, so for this one, the length is, the width of this is about 5/8 of an inch. Or let's see what it would be in centimeters. It would be, well, centimeters is this way. 1.6 centimeters. Okay, so I'm going to measure that with my compass. Actually, I don't have to measure. I can just match it up to the wall and then move it out just a tiny bit. Let's see. That looks good. So what you're going to do is measure a chord on the edge of your circle. So you're going to anchor your piece and intersect the line of the circle. Can you see that? It's pretty light. I'm going to move it down a little bit more. Try to draw it deeper. And then we're going to put our point at this intersection of the two lines. And I'm going to keep doing that for a number of sides. And so what happens is, I'll show you, you end up making perfectly even sides. The old way I used to do it, before I figured this out, was drawing a triangle and then copying the triangle, but it adds a lot of error because, the width of the paper and the width of your pattern. Okay, so how many is that? That should be plenty. Okay, let me show you. So there's my circle with all these marks that are just slightly wider than the wall of my tower. So the next thing you do, shoot, need a pencil again, and I have a pencil. Just a second. And now you draw the sides. So the centerpiece is here. So I'm going to draw a line that connects this point to that point. And you'll see in a minute that all of these sides are really nice and consistent, and it makes a great steeple or tower topper. And the other thing you can do, you can see, is that you can make as many-sided steeple easily. You don't have to, like, oh no, this one is like 360 divided by 6. You don't have to do that. You can tell exactly how many sides. So if you want a 6-sided one. And the other thing is you can draw this directly on your material and cut it out directly from your material. If you're using a cutting machine, you don't go through all this, but I think it's nice to kind of understand this idea so you can be creative with your towers and stuff. So you can make your own patterns. I don't think we need that many sides. Let's see how many sides we've got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we could do an 8-sided one. And then you want the bottom piece to be straight, so you're going to connect these lines. And once again, you could just cut it out directly. You don't have to draw it, but if you're doing a pattern, you can draw it. I didn't really do that one right. So I just wanted you to know that this is an option, a simple option for making a steeple that fits nicely on your tower. And then one of the sides is going to be the glue side. And for the glue side, I don't make it go all the way down. I make like a half triangle. So I angle it up, and let's just do this so it won't. And you see, you can actually cut this out really easily. This is just paper, so it's not, it's really not stiff enough for an actual tower. If you're going to cut it out, you need to make sure your score lines are scored before you cut it out. But that's how you make a pattern. It's just so easy, and you can see that it's much more accurate than if you cut out triangles and traced a triangle and traced a triangle and traced a triangle. Oh, okay. So Jackie likes this way. Jackie makes beautiful patterns on a cottage in the forest, and Janet likes this too. Okay. So that's one option. Okay, here's something else that's really cool that you can do with this method. And that is, say you have a tower where you've got like 2 short sides, long side, 2 short sides, and you want your steeple to fit this, and they're different sizes. You do the same thing with this. Okay, so we've got a skinny We'll call that one the skinny one. But we want the next one to be 1 inch wide. So I'm going to change my, so we'll do 1 inch for that one. Wait. And then I'm going to just change it to 1/2 inch. So it's so easy to make them fit, you know, different tower diameters. Back to 1 inch. Now you do have to switch back and forth. That's the only thing. But still, you can make really unique steeples without, you know, kind of stressing about matching up your little angles and things. So I just wanted to kind of demonstrate to you. This is pretty much for hand drawing. Now, the truth is, when I design it on my computer, I haven't figured out. I mean, I guess you could do something similar to this, but I haven't figured it out. So I'm still struggling with figuring out how to do the patterns. I mean, I can do them, but I struggle because you have to match up the points and stuff. So, but I really think drawing them's easier. So let's do one more 1/2 inch, and then we'll draw this one out so you can kind of see, and it'll make a really unique steeple. Draw the lines real quick. And a narrow side. And when I'm not doing it on video, I'm more precise, but I'm trying not to bore y'all. So that's why I'm like hurrying. You know, never want to be boring. See, I didn't connect it to the center point. But anyway, you get the idea. So that is the hand-drawn steeple pattern, trying to make your life easier. Okay, so here's a fat side, fat side, fat side, skinny side. So, okay, now that is what I wanted to show you for the hand-drawn patterns. The other thing I wanted to show you a little bit about actually making the pattern, actually folding it and stuff. So I mentioned this. Oh dear. My craft knife just stabbed into my floor. Phew. My foot was not in the way. That was a good thing. Okay, so I mentioned it last week. To score, I like really sharp score lines, and I like them. This one is cut on my machine, and it's got score lines, but you can see they're kind of faint. So for something precise, where I want nice straight lines, I reinforce it with the back of my craft knife. So it's the back, the non-cutting side, but it makes a really nice line. So you can see, and it'll fold so much easier. Didn't line that one up perfectly. Yeah, I'm kind of missing my mark. This thing is so narrow that you really want to kind of put your ruler, your steel ruler, right next to the line, very close to it, not away. Like if you're drawing a pencil, you move your ruler away a little bit to give room for the pencil tip to go. But when you've got something narrow like this, you want it really close to the ruler. Okay, so that's it. So when I am folding score lines, I first fold towards myself and then away. It's just easier for towards myself and then away, towards, And I want to show you the last one. And, you know, sometimes like when it's really narrow, I'll use the ruler to help me. Like this piece, your glue tab, the angled glue tab. Actually, let's do it this way. See if it'll work better. Okay. There's your glue tab, and it's always kind of hard to get it to glue right around the tip. And so I try to, you know, tuck that little bit in. This is my 30-point cardboard, and that is one of our steeples. The other thing you can do is because it's like it always leaves a little gap, is you can put a toothpick in there. I think you can see kind of the little piece of toothpick and glue a flag. I put a flag in my pattern, so you can add a flag to the tip. And so that is the hexagonal pattern. You can also do it for an octagon, the same thing, but I use the back of the craft knife to do sharp edges so I get good folds. Okay, but last week we also, yeah, I'm sorry, I dropped my glasses. I'm like the clumsy, Cheryl's happy I'm left-handed. I'm extremely left-handed, as you can tell by tossing everything on the floor. Okay, so this is the circular steeple. That was one thing, one of my goals in making this castle was doing circular turrets and trying to figure out how to get them to fit onto these corners. And I might as well tell you, I didn't do it exactly perfect. When I did them out of cardboard, I think, and I wetted it, so I wet the cardboard so that it would mold. I think it shrunk a little bit, so it didn't fit my template quite as well as I'd hoped. But I'm pretending I don't notice. I don't think cardstock would do that as much. Plus, I covered it with grit paste, and I think that's another reason it shrunk. And then I dried it in the oven, so there were a couple reasons for it to shrink. But cardstock. So this steeple, and I'm using, this is actually, if you're a very bad cat spray gun, I usually have a small craft one, but I can't find it, so I don't really spray my cats, but they would have to be very bad. So I'm going to let it wet and get soft a little bit so it's more pliable. Okay, I'm going to just dry it a second. Okay, see, now it's got cat hairs on it. Okay, so it's more pliable. Be sure to pay attention to where the tip is, and then you're trying not to fold it, you're just trying to curve it. And maintaining the tip, and just kind of slide it in there. And the sides, one of the sides almost always kind of slides up, so try to pull it down so that they match at the bottom. There you go. Trying to tuck that in a little bit. Okay. And then you get your tower. I don't know. Of course, I dropped the circular tower, just like everything else. Okay. Here's my circular tower. And then make sure it fits. And if you want it narrower, you can tighten it up. But really, I think that's about the best it could be. And then if you have too much material in here, sometimes you have to trim it, because that takes up space if you put it on top of your tower. And then just use the glue. I'm using my Barely Art glue. And make sure the place it wants to come undone is at the top. Match up the bottom. Check it out at the top. And then, like I said, if the top is too ugly, then just put a flag in there. And then the other thing I wanted to tell you, my friend Rhonda, who did the blog Christmas Notebook, Um, Rhonda said this. She fills the tip with hot glue. Now, of course, if you're putting in a flag, you'd use something like that. But she fills the tip because with hot glue because if it tips over, um, what's the most vulnerable part? It's the tip. So she always puts hot glue in there so that it's not, and you don't have to fill the whole thing, but you want the tip because if you drop it on the tip, that's what's going to bend. And so you make it much more sturdy and long lasting if you put a little bit of glue in there. So I thought that was a brilliant idea. So I'm not going to do it because as you can see, I'm clumsy. And if I had my hot glue going on all this time, you'd probably hear me yelling as I got burned. So anyway, just fill the tip, really just a little bit. And that solves the problem of this vulnerable peak. And then Jackie asked about how big a circle. You know, you could probably do some geometry and figure it out, but I do it by trial and error. So I've never used more than a whole circle. Actually, that's not true. On some of my fairy houses, I'm going to get a fairy house and show you. I'm coming. I put it down as I make my way around my table. So my fairy house, this probably is about a whole circle or 3/4 of a circle, but I do it by trial and error. This is a wider base, so I need more. And you can see I put hot glue in the tip too. Yes, so that one took about 3/4 of a circle, but I really do it by trial and error. So when I draw my pattern, I draw, like 3/4 of a circle or just over half, and then I trim it down because I don't want it to be confusing for people. So the wider I make it, people are like, winding all this stuff inside, which is actually hard. So I try to simplify it that way. But that was a very good question. Yeah, this one I haven't published yet. This is like my poinsettia house. So that's the circular one, the hexagon steeple. And the last thing, I just wanted to show you a little bit more about, about adding a bell to any of your towers. Now when it's laying down, you really can't see it, but there is a bell there. And when you use a string, it just doesn't flow. So you have to have a jump ring so that the bell can have more movement. And then you have to have something, I made this the wrong size, but you have to have something that goes on the top of your tower to hold this. So you put that through. Then measure the length so that it shows on your tower so you know that it's deep enough. Then it actually will hang down to the window you're looking for. And then you can either do a blob of hot glue or do a jump ring and a blob of hot glue, something like that, to hold it in place. And then you put it in your tower, and then you put your steeple on top of it. So, but the difference is using a jump ring, a little piece of chain, and then your bell hangs just so nicely. So I really like that effect. That was from Rhonda, who makes beautiful little houses, usually on she posts on the Glitter and Putz House Facebook group. I have 2 Facebook groups. One tends to be more for people who hand cut patterns, and that's the Glitter and Putz group. It's a little more traditional. And then my main group is the Paper Houses and Paper Crafts Facebook group. So that one is more for a little more Cricut oriented or cutting machine oriented, and a little bit broader topic. So I think that's what I was going to teach you about. So does anybody have any questions for me? I just wanted you to be able to make really nice tower toppers because you know, that's the dramatic feature on a castle, are the turrets and the towers and steeples. I don't know that that one's glued on very well. Oh well. Oh, the other thing is adding shingles. I didn't really prepare anything for that, but I did make, let me see if I can find some. My cats really like to play with shingles. Wait, I'm coming. I only have one. So I did make a circular pattern to go around easier. If you have a straight pattern, I have to get that one. You see, this looks like a toy to my cats. I made my shingles out of watercolor paper because I knew they would take paint really well and fold. So if you try to do a straight shingle around a curved piece, you're like always kind of compensating for the curve. So I made some curved shingles, and they're not exactly perfect, but they work so much better. So you can see it goes around so much easier. So that's in the pattern as well. But yeah, and then just glue layers of it. I think I had to cut out two of them to make 2 pages of them to complete the shingles for my tower, for my steeples. I really like the effect. Honestly, the curved ones just made it so much easier. And put the shingles on before you glue the turret or the tower to your house. The other thing you can do is I actually put them on before I glued them to my tower. And that way, the back part, it's a little bit, you can see it's not like perfectly lined up, but it's not terribly chaotic, and it's not what people notice. And also, you can see the top of my tower is kind of blank right there. I'm not really worried about that, I don't think. It would be hard to make a piece small enough. And everybody cuts things a little different, so if you make it too precise, I think it can make it harder for people to make. So let me see. Yeah, so that's the shingles. They're in the pattern as well. And I believe that's it. I hope you haven't been bored, and I hope I've given you some tips that help you make really unique towers and steeples and churches. And you know, these things apply to lots of things, like you can make a schoolhouse with a bell and have it ding ding ding, and it'd be better. So I think that's it. If you do have questions, the other place you can put them in one of the Facebook groups. You can email me at lucy@paperglitterglue.com, or once the recording has been the replay recording is there, you can ask in the replay, and that way it'll help other people who weren't able to attend live. Okay, y'all, I think that's it, and I hope you have some happy crafting. Alrighty, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.